Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everybody here for the City of Clawson regular meeting of the Planning Commission for Tuesday, January 9th, 2018 at 7:30. We're going to start the meeting. Would everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Benton? Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Kucera?
Yes.
Mr. McHale?
Here.
Ms. Prouse?
Yes.
Ms. Scripture?
Yes.
Mr. Shepard?
Here.
Mr. Watson?
Yes.
Item number 4, I'm looking for an approval of the regular minute meetings from December 12th of 2017.
Make a motion to approve the regular minutes from the Planning Commission meeting of Tuesday, December 12th, 2017.
Second.
Oh, okay. Let the young lady have it for the new year.
I have motion, I have support. Any changes, corrections, problems with it?
No.
Nothing? Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Kucera?
Yes.
Mr. McHale?
Yes.
Ms. Prouse?
Yes.
Ms. Scripture?
Yes.
Mr. Shepard?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
Yes.
Item number 5, public hearing on a request for a special land use approval for 1330 North Crooks Road in the Business Renewal District, BRD2, per sections 34-1200.21C6 and 7 of the Clawson Land Development Regulations. So this is the Mike Savoy site, I believe,
It is.
and Mr. Elliott.
Let me just introduce the request, and then I think it would be appropriate to see if there's anyone here from the public who would like to comment on it. This site was formerly occupied by AT&T, as I understand it. It's a 5.92 acre site. There's a 42,630 square foot building on that site, and as you mentioned, it's zoned BRD2, which is the Business Renewal District 2. Under the special land uses allowable in that district, the sections that you cited provide for the Planning Commission to be able to approve both other similar uses to those that are permitted in BRD2, as well as uses that are determined by the Planning Commission to be consistent with the intent of the district. So the request here is to utilize the rear portion of the property for what I would term a staging area for new vehicles that are being prepped and made ready to take to the applicant's dealership elsewhere. There will be other uses that the building will be put to, but which are permitted, namely office use. But the staging, the outdoor staging, and the prepping, we believe fall within those two sort of flexible use categories that you have discretion to approve. And so that's kind of the scope of what is being asked for tonight, and what we're having the public hearing on right now.
Would the applicant like to address us? Any comments?
Good evening, I'm Mike Savoy. Met most of you about a month ago, and we're back for application for special land use. Jack, our architect, has submitted a number of things as conceptual, but yes, we have an agreement on a sale price with AT&T, and but what we need is a permission from you folks to use it for our needs. As you all know, the property has fallen into disrepair, and we've looked at it pretty hard with city managers, department managers, Jack, our architect here, and we're willing to make the necessary modifications that we have to in a number of areas. And I thought I'd come up after the public hearing. But, yes, I mean, if you have any questions,
Anyone have any questions directly? Seeing it is a public hearing, should I open it for public now for anyone from the public here wishing to speak? Going once, going twice, see no one from the public, we'll just move right back along again.
Actually, I do have one question. So, yeah, we had a pretty thorough conversation with you a month ago when you came in. You described it. Has anything changed? Is what you're thinking about, or are we still talking about the same scope and parameters of what you anticipate doing in the buildings? Is that all the same?
yes, we were forthright with you right from the
Yep.
beginning. I
No, that's
mean,
fine, as long as nothing's
yeah.
changed.
No, it's, Mr. Elliott has put some stuff together. There were some words where he said new cars. We think it should be new vehicles. So we just don't want to get into a situation where we're splitting hairs. You know, trucks are considered new vehicles. And we sell more trucks than we do cars nowadays. But, you know, coming down the road, we're going to have more electric vehicles. We're going to have more autonomous vehicles. So it's, yeah. To me, for us to keep cars there at 1330 doesn't do me any good, because I can't legally sell them there. And if you remember, I told you last time, this property's not open to the public.
Right.
So we need to get them there and get them prepared to get them down the street so we can sell them.
No, that was a good choice of words, because you've got SUVs too, so.
We do. We do.
So this is just a request for approval before you approach us with a site plan.
We have the site plan as well, and I'll explain what we're asking you to do tonight as I go through my report here. But,
Okay.
Before I can close on a property, I'd like to know I could use it for what I want to.
Sure.
Absolutely.
That helps.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
step one.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so having stolen my thunder there, yes, the reason we're going ahead with it in this fashion, as you pointed out, there's a site plan required as well, and they have applied for site plan review and provided a site plan, which I did review, and the engineering consultant reviewed as well. But there are, as you may have noticed in looking at that in your packets, there are options, various options that they're considering, dependent mostly upon what manner of stormwater detention they choose to utilize. And so the site plan is not going to be in a position where it can be approved tonight. But because they want to complete their due diligence and know that they have the land entitled, they do want to, they would like to try to get the special land use approval from you tonight. And so that's the way we've reviewed it.
So Greg, we're not asking, the applicant is not asking us for our opinion on which site plan that we would prefer at the, like tonight?
I think
This
you
is
can
strictly
give them
for-
that opinion,
Okay.
if you have one. But we will talk about the site plan to give them guidance.
Okay.
But for an action item tonight, I think what's appropriate is to take action on the special land use, so they have an answer about that, and then discuss the site plan issues and give them some guidance on completing that, which will be primarily driven by engineering concerns, but there are other issues as well.
Okay.
So, in light of that, let me go through the special land use findings first that you have to make for any special land use, and we've been through these before, and because it's important that these be on the record, let me read each one, and I'll give you my observations on them as well. So number one, the location, scale, and intensity of the proposed use shall be compatible with adjacent uses and zoning of land. As we discussed, they're proposing to park new vehicles that are in the process of being transferred to their dealership. As such, the use doesn't, or it will not appear any different than a standard parking lot, except all the cars will be new. Other than they are parked in a somewhat more dense fashion. Not that the spaces are not legitimately sized, but they're not broken up the same way as they would be otherwise. But that's a site planning issue. So we felt like that finding could be met because it won't appear to be any different than other uses allowable in the district. B, the proposed use shall promote the use of land in a socially and economically desirable manner and shall not adversely impact the social and economic well-being of those who will use the proposed land use or activity, residents, businesses, adjacent landowners, or the city as a whole. Again, in our opinion, that standard is met. The site has been in disrepair really for, as we've discussed, for years, and so it will be in fact an improvement. And the site is protected by an obscuring wall, and they're proposing additional landscaping to buffer it from the residential use to the east. C, the proposed use shall not involve any activities, processes, materials, operations, equipment, or conditions of operation that are detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare or objectionable to nearby dwellings by reason of noise, fumes, glare, or flashing lights, as long as the area is for the storage of new vehicles. We believe that standard will be met. D, a need for the proposed use exists in the community. We'd observed that this is an established dealership of long standing, and so I think it's appropriate to trust their judgment that they have a need for this use. E, the proposed special land use will be designed, constructed, operated, and maintained to ensure long-term compatibility with surrounding land use. As I mentioned, this site, when it was used by AT&T, was poorly maintained. They will use the building in a manner that's consistent with the zoning and are proposing to make substantial improvements to the site so that it will be more harmonious with its neighbors. Also, they're intending to address issues of stormwater runoff, both that are created by the addition of new impervious surfaces and to some degree that exist already today. And so for all those reasons, we believe that standard is met. F, the location shall minimize the impact of the traffic generated by the proposed use. We anticipate very little traffic other than obviously the deliveries that will occur, and there's sufficient off-street parking spaces provided. And the circulation pattern supports the truck deliveries as well. G, the proposed special land use shall be consistent with existing and future capabilities of public services and facilities affected by the proposed use. It appears that that is so long as the stormwater runoff issues are addressed as part of site plan review. H, the proposed special land use shall be compatible with and in accordance with the general principles and future land use configuration of the city's master plan and shall promote the intent and purpose of this article. You're called on here to determine that the use is consistent with other permitted uses in the district or consistent with the intent of the district, and in our opinion that is so, and if you agree then that finding is met. I, the location of the proposed special land use shall not result in a small residential area being substantially surrounded by non-residential development or incompatible uses. That is not the case. And J, the proposed use shall be compatible with the natural environment and conserve natural resources and energy. In our opinion, as long as the stormwater is properly handled, there will be no such negative effects. So that is those are your special land use findings. I don't know if you want to discuss those or if you want me to proceed with the site plan review comments first.
Yeah, I think we can go on with the site plan comments. One question I have is, have the bordering residents been contacted, informed that this is going on?
Yes,
They
yes.
have.
So anybody within 300 feet got a notice, and there was a notice of the public hearing in the
They've
paper
all been
as well.
notified of that. Okay.
So how much does this deviate from what is already designated for this zone?
Well, as we talked about previously, it's not something that's specifically called out, but it's very similar to things that you have found are appropriate in that district, right? And the intent of the district, as we've also talked about with respect to BRD2 before, was really to provide space for sort of quasi-industrial, but otherwise clean and unoffensive sorts of uses, right? And to me, this fits that description. The particularized listing of uses, doesn't elaborate to a tremendous degree on what all those things are, unfortunately. But that was the intent. And so you have these catch-all provisions as special land uses that allow you to let other things fit in there that come within the intent of the district. And so,
'Cause
I think within Clawson, this is the place we've designated for these kind of uses.
Yeah,
We've
and
talked about them before.
I don't raise that as an objection. I just raise it as, okay, what was the discussion and what was our feeling and thought and direction at that point in time, and how does this fit in with that? Now, one thing that I recall being brought up at that point in time we wanted to consider were things that had innovation as part of their strategy. And, quite honestly, if you've got new vehicles coming in, I don't know what's more innovative than new vehicles, especially something that's, with progression of electrical vehicles. So I think in my opinion, I think it fits
Right.
the location.
We had, kind of a similar discussion with Detroit Tuned, if you'll remember that.
that's
And,
exactly right.
I mean, that's kind of what they do as well. They don't park them outside, but they do detailing and customization of vehicles.
Yeah, and that's what I'm coming at this with, as far as from a perspective that, does it fit what my recollection was as far as what we wanted to try to achieve? And in my opinion, I think it does.
Greg, regarding item A, the question of I just wanted to understand the intensity of the use. In the conversations with the applicant, one of our questions, I believe, from the last conversation was to get a sense of how many vehicles will be moving across the site, on the site, in terms of deliveries and other types of vehicles coming on and off the site. How did that come up in the conversations, or it's not really addressed here, other than saying that we find the intensity okay? I just love a little bit more in terms of understanding that.
Yeah, I don't know that we have any information. How frequently do you
You could be
envision
bringing
trucks coming?
semis in and,
I mean, they come daily, no Saturdays, no Sundays, no evenings, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock. I mean, we pretty much dictate the hours that they come.
But they'll be heading directly into the location. There won't be any scenarios where the semis will be parked out on Crooks.
Only if the guy's an idiot.
Okay.
I mean, truck,
I understand what you're saying. You can't control that. I get that.
there's more than enough room on this site to handle all the trucks that we would ever have.
Okay.
Yes, I mean, it's a nice sized lot, nice sized building. But again,
Sure.
don't hold me to what these truckers do.
Understand.
They have demonstrated on the plan the truck swings, in the back.
Yep.
And so it's nice in the sense that, you'll see them coming and going, but you won't see them when they're on the site because they're behind the building and behind the fence.
And the height of the vehicles will not exceed the wall height in the rear, right?
Correct.
Okay.
No, they're not like the other two neighbors
Yep.
that have no, there won't be any semis parked there.
Okay.
Anything above that wall height.
So how will vehicles be transported back over to your dealership?
Well, in a perfect world, what will happen is if we sell 21 day, we'll come over and get 20 and drive them back over.
Okay.
There won't be a big hallway to come and take them away.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I know even on delivery days, there's room in the driveway that a couple of the mobile parking lots can rest right there to be unloaded. So there'll be no interference with traffic.
Okay.
I have a quick question, just a curiosity question, has nothing to do with, what were the drainage issues? You said, I mean, you keep mentioning them, so what was?
You want to talk about?
2 hours to go?
No,
No.
sorry.
Let's just say Phragmites, Phragmites, Phragmites.
The
Sitting water.
current drainage issue is a metamorphosis of different things that have occurred from the early 60s until the early 2000 that we've discovered, none of which will fly with the proposed stormwater management system. So it's unusual that we would submit to you 3 different options of stormwater management, but we haven't elected which one we're going with yet. We are not pro-open drainage, but we're studying very closely the fully enclosed insofar as the economic impact is. And so there might be a hybrid of half in and half out. I can't say yet at this time. But the original stormwater and sanitary combined actually went to the east about 1,300 feet. Following that area, it was modified so that it gravity fed the sanitary out to Crooks to the 21-inch combination sewer that's there. And the stormwater system, through a series of pumps, go to a swale, if you will, on the north end of the site to where it picks up the drainage, again going toward the 21-inch line in Crooks Road. So everything is separate now, still going to the same sewer, and it's what I would call semi-controlled. It's not to the statistics and requirements that we have for the stormwater management requirements of the engineering department, but Mr. Drinkwine and myself have been working very closely and diligently with our civil engineer to aggressively come up with a positive control of everything for the final site plan submittal and the engineering reviews and approvals. I hope that answers your
Yeah, just curious.
questions.
You can pass mine down too.
We're ready to go through the site plan review comments, I'll do that.
One thing I'm confused by here on my agenda, and number 5 is what we're on now, which is a public hearing, and then number 6 seems to be the same thing, like it's a special land use and a site plan approval.
No, we went past the public hearing.
Okay, so-
Ideally, we would have had a motion to close the public hearing.
But I did, I closed the public hearing.
You announced that it was closed.
So now we're on item number 6.
We're on 6, yeah.
And it's saying we're going for a site plan approval here, but you're saying we cannot
Well,
really give a site plan approval.
Yeah, we're going to discuss it, but in turn, you'll, but you'll see my recommendation
Right.
is only to.
It's limited by
act
some
on
items,
Special
yes.
land use. So the use, as we talked about, in addition to there will be an office occupancy in the front of the building. You can see the office area of the building. And then there's a service area to the building that will be used in conjunction with the staging area that they're creating in the back, as I understand it. So vehicle access and driveways, they're not proposing to change that in any way. The width of the driveways were not all dimensioned. It looks to me like the northern drive is about 40 feet wide, and that's wider than we would normally feel like is necessary. So perhaps they will want to address whether that's something they need or whether that could be narrowed. The traffic circulation is intended to come, as I understand it from the site plan, is intended to come in the north, circulate behind the building and exit on the south. There are gates at about the midpoint of the building on each side that regulate that. So there is a public parking area, or parking area for the general public, if you will, that exists outside of those gates. And I believe that what will actually happen in that area is that those folks will leave via the northern drive as well. And so that traffic pattern just should be correctly identified on the site plan. There's a third curb cut off of Crooks, and it looks like their intent, so it goes right into a overhead door that is just beyond, it faces Crooks, but it's beyond that office area that juts out in front of the building. And it appears to me what they're proposing is to eliminate that and use that new driveway that comes off the southernmost drive to access that. And that's great. We just want to make sure that the curb cut will be properly abandoned and the curb line and street lawn restored out along the street.
We're talking butting right up against Crooks? That you want that restored?
Yeah.
Because they're going to take
Yeah.
out the existing
Yeah,
asphalt?
so everything, so I don't know if we can zoom in on that a little bit up front there. Yeah. So you see where the new drive is?
Yes.
You know, and then from that point out, currently is an existing drive. You can see where the curb cut is there.
Okay.
Right? And so all that unneeded pavement should go away. And I think that's their intent. We
Okay.
just want to make
Yep.
sure that's clear on the plan. Pedestrian access, there's a public sidewalk along the street frontage, but it's not connected to the, and then there's one in front of the building as well, but the two are not connected. And so we think there should be a connection between the street sidewalk and the building. Off-street parking, the site requires 56 spaces. Obviously, they have, they will have something between, depending on which option is chosen, 210 and 258 places for vehicles to park. Of those, 56 of them are needed to be designated for the users of the site, in other words, not vehicle staging. And they have 46 of those located within proximity of the building, basically along the northern side of the building, on both sides of the gate. So they will have to use some of the other parking that's being created in the back as part of that required parking. I mean, that doesn't really concern me, I pointed out, but, it is somewhat distant from the building, but, as I say, it's not a great concern. It's a small number that need to be back there. The rows of parking in the storage area are not such as we would typically allow in a parking lot. This isn't a parking lot, so in my mind, that's okay. Normally, we would want those rows broken up with landscape islands and put some trees in there. But because we're not doing that, it seems to me that in lieu of that, it would be appropriate to have some canopy trees around the perimeter of the lot to kind of function the way they otherwise would have within the center of the lot. There's not really a reason to try to force them into the center of the lot in this situation. It doesn't seem to me. You may want to discuss that. Loading and unloading is obvious. They've demonstrated the circulation pattern there. You can see that kind of hatched semicircle going through the back of the site. That's the way the trucks will flow. Landscaping and screening. So out front, we require, our green belt with street trees. What they've proposed are 3 ornamental trees in that area. We don't think that's appropriate. Those should be large canopy trees instead. And as I mentioned, we think it would be appropriate to add additional canopy trees around the perimeter of the parking area in the rear. They have a 8-foot screen wall already in place along the residential district boundary, and they're proposing to create a 10-foot green belt on the west side of that, and they're going to plant that. They're required to have a 10-foot green belt. They're proposing to create a 20-foot green belt there, and they're going to plant that with white pines. The size of all the landscape materials needs to be called out on the plan. That was not done. So if they choose to go with an open detention option, then it would be appropriate to provide appropriate landscape screening for, or landscaping for that area as well. The plan calls for automatic irrigation, which is appropriate. They've provided elevations that I think they passed out, but we also have up on the screen. They're painting the building. Other than that, I don't think any new materials are proposed. I should point out that the shrubs in front are a new feature in the landscape plan as well. Trash removal, there's an existing trash enclosure. We should just have details of that provided with the site plan. Signs, they're proposing a conforming monument sign, which will just have the building address on it. And exterior lighting, we need some more information on that. They indicated their intent to comply with the requirements of the land development standard, land development regulations, but the height of the poles is not indicated. So with they're removing the old parking lot poles, which is a good thing, but we need to know what the height of the new ones are going to be, so we can see that they comply. So as I said, my recommendation is that we not take action on the site plan. They're going to have to complete their engineering studies to decide which option they want to choose. But to facilitate their purchase of the property, I think it would be fine to go ahead and take action on the special land use. And if you're so inclined and you agree with the findings as I've reviewed them for you, you should adopt those as your findings. And then I suggested 3 conditions that would go along with that. 1, approval is conditioned upon site plan approval. 2, only new vehicles may be parked in the proposed vehicle staging area. And 3, vehicle detailing and prep may be performed at the site, but only on new vehicles.
Do we want to specify that that should only be interior, like on the inside of the building as well? Or are we planning on doing any staging and prepping on the
Well,
exterior?
that's not indicated on the plan, but yes, that would be appropriate to clarify that within the building.
I would also like to put no maintenance on the exterior as well.
Right,
Yeah.
that'd be fine.
Well, just along those same lines, there's sometimes people do, I mean, we've gone to the plant and had to change them in the parking lot, things on vehicles themselves, which is just a maybe 15, 20-minute as far as work cycle, and it doesn't really entail, and it's easy to just go back outside on the lot to take care of it instead of taking the vehicle, putting it in the building, and doing the repair there, and then taking it back out. So
Yeah,
from
I'd like to hear the applicant's opinion on that, if that is going to be a concern.
Well, these are new vehicles, and it would be our hope there would be nothing wrong with those vehicles. But if you get a flat tire, you know, loses air. If it gets a dead battery, these cars do have quite a few computers in them. They do get parasitic draw, especially in this cold weather. Batteries go dead. So, yeah, sometimes you have to do something
I
outside.
understand. Is there, can you give us maybe some verbiage to be able to differentiate between perhaps like an engine, having to repair an engine or something like that versus what you're describing?
Any engine repair would be done at 1900 West Maple.
Okay.
I mean, this is very low level, low key. I mean, the extent of the work that's done to the car is basically checking. They come in off the truck. Our responsibility is to make sure that the lights work, the wipers work, the turn signals work, and to make sure that the cars are taken out of shipping mode with the computers and everything is energized. We would be everything would pretty much be done on the inside of the vehicle, of the building. Like they don't ship cars with 22-inch wheels.
Sure.
So inside we would take the shipping wheels off, put those, there's existing hoists in the building right now.
Beautiful.
Running boards, anything like that. To what you're alluding to, no.
Okay.
we've got a 70,000 square foot building in Troy that's what they do.
Okay.
So are you taking, I'm sorry, but are you taking possession of these once they come off of the trailers? Is that when the transaction of your ownership of those vehicles happens, or?
Well, actually, the ownership takes place when they leave the plant.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
When they put a window sticker on that car, I
Okay.
own it.
Okay. Not when
Okay.
it gets dropped off.
Not
You
when
don't
it
have an
gets dropped.
opportunity to say, hey, this is, call the rep in here, we've got a bad one. Right.
Oh, it happens, but
Yeah.
we still have, it's ours.
Okay.
Until they say,
But in
oh,
those instances, you'd keep it inside of the building, right? Or what would you do with?
well, generally, at a vehicle like that, we'd have to take it to our body shop.
Oh, okay.
To have them take pictures, give an
Yeah.
estimate and stuff like that. So we would, no.
Yeah.
It's not our intent to be storing crashed cars.
Right.
I mean, if everything worked right, the neighbors would never see what's on
Yeah.
the lot. I mean, ideally, we'd like everything parked in a nice orderly fashion, no trash. Just to give you an example of type of company we are, you have a dumpster enclosure that we will never use. Okay, we collect our own refuse and our recyclables, and we take it to the transfer station
Okay.
over on Crooks
Yeah.
or on Coolidge. So there won't be any outside storage of trash or refuse.
Okay.
I mean, ideally, this place will be pristine. I mean, but
Yeah.
So do you have possible inspections of vehicles outside, right? So, I mean.
well, the vehicles come in off a truck.
Yeah.
They unload them, and we have representation there that review the vehicles
Okay.
to see if there's dents, scratches, anything like that.
Okay.
Now, if there's a dent in it, we note it on the shipper.
Uh-huh.
Okay, they leave the vehicle. Then we have to take it over to the body shop for repair.
Okay. So that's where most of the maintenance would be, right? I mean, you may have to jump a car occasionally, but that's if it's a dead battery or replace a battery. What we're trying to do is understand the scope as far as if anything does happen outside, what type of maintenance would it be, right? You're not tearing out
It's kind of no different than what happened in any other parking lot.
That's what I'm trying to understand.
So,
Yeah,
yeah, I
exactly.
mean, if you wanted to,
And
per the city attorney's suggestion, if you wanted to articulate it, you could say something like, exterior repair, exterior maintenance would be limited to rudimentary items such as tire replacement and repair.
Battery.
And battery replacement.
So you have to remember, most of the equipment that these technicians use today is air-driven. All right, so they need to be with a hose and a compressor.
Sure.
There isn't a hose or a compressor out in the parking lot.
Yeah, and for things like an OBD diagnostic, you're not going to have crash vehicles. It's going to be at the body shop or wherever that. So okay.
Yeah,
All right.
basically, that's what I was alluding to when I created that, and Mr. Savoy reinforced that, having worked out there in the lots myself, so fully aware that, yes, it does require sometimes,
Yeah.
even on new vehicles.
Greg, I agree with you on the switching out the ornamental trees in the front. I do have a question on that, though. On the renderings that we see, the beautiful ones with the blue paint, there are no power lines in that, but there are power lines there. Are there issues with the trees
These
interfering
are
with that?
back on the property, so I don't
Okay.
think there should be issues with the,
Okay, just
with
want to
the
make sure.
overhead lines. The overhead lines are out in the right of way.
How about in the back of property? Was there anything in the back?
Yeah, I didn't try to cite those, so, I don't know what,
I mean, I drove past there just to get a lay of the land as far as, some of the other properties with the power lines that are that tall. And for the most part, there are large trees along Crooks with those power lines.
Okay.
But it just needs to be set back enough so that when they do mature, that they don't infringe upon that. But even then, that'd be I believe that's up to whoever owns the power lines in order to keep those clear. But in my opinion, it looks far better with something there to break up the power lines.
Oh, yeah.
As far as the visual aspect of it.
For sure, 100%.
But it's also, it may help with the retention if you have larger trees that be able to pull off the rainwater.
True. And then, to the applicant, do you have any issues with the proposal for the trees surrounding the parking lot in the back?
No, if you take a look at that, that is just a concept of what we envision.
Okay.
It's not exactly. We just came for the special land use,
Yeah.
but we sort of wanted to sort of like maybe tease you a little bit, like
Sure,
what it could
sure.
look like.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the driving factors is what we do with the water retention.
Understood.
That is that and fire hydrants.
Okay.
Those are two huge expenses that
Okay.
we need to take a look at.
I think, the reason I'm asking is because your site plan will be next, right? And so we're asking you to go back and make some revisions. I am personally in favor of the idea that Greg has brought to the table tonight of, trying to surround the parking lot in the back with some trees to make up for the fact that we're not going to be breaking up the parking lot. It makes sense. My biggest concern for you, and want to make sure that we're on the same page, is like, having trees in the back and you're parking these vehicles there. I don't like parking my personal vehicle under a tree, so I don't know what that's like for an inventory from your standpoint. So I just wanted to get an opinion on that from you tonight. So if you're not saying that you have an issue with it, I would like to suggest that you move forward with that type of concept for the site plan. Great. Yep. Yeah. Right now.
That was your chance.
Well, we've got several issues. I mean, if you study all the sites that abut each other, there's very minimal landscape buffers on the side lots.
Okay.
The two exceptions that I take, and I wrote a follow-up note to Mr. Elliott, who's been very helpful, and I appreciate all the comments. And for the most part, I'm in agreement with total of them. But when we start introducing deciduous trees, particularly in the back along the east property line, where we intend to do a little bit more clustering to enhance the screening effect for the neighbors to the east, you start opening up a Pandora's box of, leaf maintenance, leaf control, things like that. The impermanence of a deciduous tree for a screening effect this time of year would take me to a realm of maybe we want to do some more evergreens
Okay.
in that east area. The two sides, I'm not a landscape architect, but we need some land around it for it to grow. And
Sure.
it just wasn't in our expectations to be creating a lot of buffers on the north and the south side. If it becomes an item of concern, my opinion was that we were doing enclosed drains in the northwest area. We were going to maximize some things there to assuage the concerns of the neighbors to the north there.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that? What you mean by that?
The funeral homeowner, had a little bit of an issue of being able to see things that he didn't want to see. So
Okay.
we wanted to put some more enhancements there. We're totally in agreement with the canopy trees for the front.
Okay.
It was the two sides that gave us pause. We just don't have a lot to work with there.
Okay. Thank you for the comments.
No, I agree as far as, I believe evergreen should be in the east. I don't know about white pines, but, it's something that with the screening effect, I think you're thinking maybe firs or something like that. I don't want to get into details right now.
No, that, we're going to make everybody happy with what we want. We're alerting to you where we have a little exception. We want to all be open about it
Sure.
and
Yeah.
be on the same page with
It
you.
makes
But
sense.
we'll, it's essentially, we're going to comply. That's why I said, if you want to do
Yeah.
site plan approval tonight, conditional
understand.
on us complying with everything, we'd be happy to take it. But we're in agreement, and we just want to make sure that as a car dealership, and I've done many, a deciduous tree is evil to them. As much as they'd like
Yeah.
to tell you they like to see it,
Right.
you yourself won't park underneath one. And so when you got a couple hundred cars in the vicinity of, you want to minimize the impact
Sure.
and yet maintain the screening. So that's why I thought the fir trees would be
Yeah.
more appropriate
I,
there.
I'm on board with that.
Thank you.
I think what we're going to accomplish for you tonight, I think we'll get a motion here to give you our approval
Yeah.
for the special land use.
Understood.
And then there are stipulations, there are like at least 6 items here that have to be added to this site plan.
Absolutely.
It has to be tweaked out a little
No
further.
problem.
One last question for you, Greg. Any issues with, like in the renderings, I don't see any screening on top of the building. I know that we've made a move to try to provide some of that. Are there appliances on the top of this building? Do we need to be concerned with that?
Undoubtedly, they're up there, but, you know, it's not really within the scope of what they're
Okay.
proposing to do, so.
Yep.
I mean, if
That's why we rely on
the site
you,
plan's
yeah.
still coming back,
Okay.
so we
It's not like
we
they're
can
in
talk
the heart
about
of
that if that's an
downtown,
issue. I
that's
don't
where
know,
we-
Chad,
I
do you know?
totally understand that, yep.
We've got a host of gravity turbine ventilators in the high bay
Yep.
that have to go bye-bye. They're non-functional.
All right.
And as we get into the realm of code conformance for the occupancy of the building,
Yeah.
there'll be air handling units that are much lower profile than these monsters that are up there and not working. There's 3 air handling units that are in excess of 20 years old on the low roof. Again, those monsters are going to go away into more suitable-looking, efficient, low-profile units.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
That'll show up in the new set of site plans.
So as far as the open retention, or retention, you have 3 options, is that?
Yeah, we've got one, we've got, you know, the ultimate goal is to get it fully enclosed under the main parking lot in the back. We have a mid option, which is a narrower, open area to the north that parallels all the properties to the north. And the reason that's the strong consideration for the open areas, there's some current issues there with topography of the adjoining properties that have to be addressed in some fashion. It's not radical, but it plays well in discussing with Mr. Drinkwine that if we had anything open, it would be along there to address the runoffs problems of what's going on there. If we go to fully enclosed, we'd still be addressing the containment of that and the control of that going to the new catch basins in the parking lot. I think the least desirable that even the owner detests is a fully open one after seeing what he saw next door to us to the south. It becomes a nightmare for him. It becomes a maintenance issue. Long-term, it just never goes away.
Now, which one are you speaking of? Across the street or?
No, to the south of us.
They have a retention?
I think it's further south. Yeah, Creative
okay.
Solutions.
I'm thinking of.
I think the direct answer to your question is we're striving greatly to try and make an economic solution that he can live with.
Okay.
So it won't be a fully open one, but we haven't decided whether it's going to be partial or not.
Okay. And I have concerns about that, but only because of what's existing there now, right? So as far as the design and depth and what the maintenance, like you mentioned, as far as keeping invasives out of there. And the other thing too, with the renderings that you gave prior to the meeting, that there's additional retention if needed to the north side, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, that is the ground zero target for any open retention, which again, we're going to try and make go away. But just to the west of that designation that you just mentioned is where the dumpster is. And then beyond that is where the AT&T building that has to stay is. That is the brain center for all the computer data that goes to the north. There's an easement access right in perpetuity that goes part and parcel with Mr. Savoy's property. But beyond that area to the west, that is now open and currently with the invasive, that's all going to go away to a fully enclosed pipe with new landscaping going on. So no matter what scenario we go with, that area to the west will be fully enclosed and rehabbed.
Okay. Yeah, it's such a nuisance. Because
Yes.
I know they've had problems at the old Fisher location, or which I guess is Entertainment now, right? They've had to take out trees and constantly maintain that area, and it still doesn't, in my opinion, look attractive for their site. And, and again, as far as, you're probably going to have headaches as far as open retention and try to get as many people to give you advice as far as how to design that. I know MSU Extension has some advice, I'm sure, as far as what to do with that, if that's the design that you want to go with. But yeah, I'd like to try to avoid it at all costs.
Yeah, as I call it, the open wound approach will be limited to the backyard at the north end.
Okay, all right. I mean, obviously, I'd like to see what it ends up coming, but yeah.
We agree.
Okay.
All right.
Should we ask for a motion then?
Well, I have one comment.
Okay.
Question. I know, Greg, you referred to the north driveway as about 40 feet wide. Now,
I have a comment on that as well, but I'll let him answer first.
oh, well, I got to ask the question, too.
Okay.
No, my opinion is, based upon experiences that I've had, different plants, et cetera, I would ask Mr. Savoy if his endorsement of maintaining that 40-foot is within his best interest, because I know if I were in his shoes, I would like to keep that, because that being the entrance, that would give me an option of, if I have to put a mobile parking lot in there temporarily, at least I can still maneuver any other traffic through, and exit, that's not an issue, so.
Well, we're talking, yeah, I mean, that may be the answer, is that they feel like they need it for truck turning, but I think it should be discussed whether or not that width is needed.
Well, that's why I'm mentioning it
'Cause
now.
Obviously, the one to the south is much narrower than that.
Right, and I
Trucks-
wasn't concerned about that
Trucks
one.
leave that way, but,
Right.
so I'd invite Jack's comment.
Well, in my response to that, I wrote that we acknowledge the width of the driveway being close to 40 feet, which will taper down to 25 feet as the new parking spaces are introduced. Those spaces that are in front of the screen wall are not currently there, but yet the paving is there, and
Okay.
Mr. Elliott is correct. It is wider than usual. What we recognized was that we need some parking spaces in front of that screen wall for anybody that's coming to the office function, so that they can come up to the current sidewalk there, which is going to be replaced anyway for barrier-free purposes. And so that will narrow down the driveway somewhat to probably something more conform at 25 to 30 feet. It would still allow enough vehicular traffic of incoming, waiting to get in the gate type of a function, wider than you would normally see in a standard parking lot. But the only other thing that we had to say about that with the introduction of the new parking is we see all our foot traffic coming from that side, nothing coming from the front sidewalk, because, as Mr. Savoy had mentioned, we're not open to the public.
Right.
So in the spirit of keeping the landscape buffer pure and pristine, we'd hope that we'd get some relief on the front sidewalk going to the front door.
Okay, just making sure that we're all covered
Yep.
on that particular aspect of it, sure. Thanks, Greg,
Okay.
and thank you.
So are we seeking a motion for the special land use
Correct.
approval?
Yeah, that's great.
That and that alone? No.
Correct.
Yes. Someone want to make a motion to that effect?
Sure, why not? I'll make a motion that we grant approval for special land use for 1330 North Crooks Road under the following conditions for approval. That approval of special land use is conditioned upon site plan approval. Number 2, only new vehicles may be parked in the proposed vehicle staging area. And I'll need help with this. But number 3, vehicle detailing and prep may be performed at the site, but only on new vehicles, and minimal vehicle maintenance outside of the designated area or designated building, only as is deemed necessary for functioning vehicle use.
I'd just stick the word rudimentary.
Rudimentary. fine.
Rudimentary vehicle maintenance, such as tires and batteries.
Rudimentary maintenance such as tires and batteries.
Happy with that?
Exterior to the building.
And exterior.
You happy with that?
I came up with that one, man.
Anyone want Anybody?
I'll support that.
We got, okay, support. And obviously, we're going to wait, you'll be back again for the site plan. And you can see the list of items that have to be adjusted on the views.
Excellent.
Very good.
All right, look forward to it.
May I roll call, please?
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Casera?
Yes.
Mr. McHale?
Yes.
Ms. Prouse?
Yes.
Ms. Scripture?
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
Yes.
Ms. Fenton?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Motion approved. Thank you. Welcome to Clawson.
I missed anybody?
Oh, thank you.
We've got one.
Thank you.
Sorry. Do you need these back?
Okay, we can share it. We're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Jack, could I grab one of those, please? Sure. I did pass mine on. Thank you for bringing these.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And a Happy New Year.
Item agenda number 7 is consideration of extending the TCO for 303 West 14 Mile Road.
So this is the new home of Discount Fabrics. As you will recall, at your meeting in December, you gave them a very short duration temporary CO and asked the owner to come back tonight to address an extension. So since that time, I have spoken to the architect that the owners retained to do a new site plan for the property. It's Art Collegian, who we've seen before.
Oh, okay.
And he is working on that. He had a little health scare, so it slowed him down a little bit, but he's back in the office, and we spoke about that last week. What I asked the owner, Frank Jones, to do for tonight, to give you a comfort level going forward, there are certain things that we know are going to have to be done to the site, the striping for barrier-free parking, and just generally, I think the parking lot needs to be restriped. There needs to be, though they have only a very small 2-yard dumpster out there, it should be screened. And so we asked Art to propose a method for screening that. We wanted them to consider an additional street tree for the property. And then they have planter boxes which have not been maintained on the east side of the building. And so we wanted them to consider landscaping for those. So unfortunately, I just got it tonight, and I don't have copies to pass out for you all, but Mr. Jones has provided me with estimates from various contractors to do those things. Those estimates total $5,686. Those seem to be legitimate estimates to me. And so if you're in accord, what I think would be appropriate is to extend the temporary CO into the spring, so that because these are things that won't be able to be accomplished during the cold weather, and require him to post a security deposit, which he is willing to do in the form of cash deposit with the city treasurer in that amount, to guarantee that those things will be taken care of in the spring, and require him to submit the site plan by a date certain, giving Mr. Collegian an appropriate amount of time to prepare that, given that he's just started working on it last week. So maybe, by a date in February, the site plan wants to be submitted. He's already paid his application for site plan review, so that is already taken care of. We just need to have the physical site plan presented. And so in the ideal world, we'll have that site plan review done by spring. Spring will come. The things that need to be done on the exterior of the site will get done, and then they can have their final CO. So for tonight, he's asking that the temporary CO be extended. I would say extend that through the end of May, and condition it upon a cash deposit of $5,686 and submission of a new site plan for the property by, let's say, the end of February.
Greg, do you know if this site plan is going to be for the entire
It'll
building?
be for the whole property.
Okay. All right.
You mentioned the dumpster, and I believe last time we were here, we talked about the dumpster. They don't have a use for one.
Well, so
Is
the
it
dumpster is in
mandatory?
use by House of Optical right now. They're obviously moving, but we don't know who's going to move in their place. And so there needs, it may be that it ends up being, Mr. Collegian may come up with some other approach, but there needs to be some money set aside for dumpster screening.
Because it is for the whole site
for the
and
whole
not just
site.
for Discount Fabric. Now,
Correct.
Discount Fabric were the ones that had stated they didn't need,
Right.
necessarily need, okay, I got you. Okay. Do we need to hear, does anybody have questions on this one? No?
So as far as the February would be when they submit the site plan, not when it's approved, right?
Correct, just bring the site plan for review.
Also, it will be a review process.
Right, so it would end up coming to you in March, and hopefully everything will get
Okay.
approved and conditions resolved, and they'll be able to take care of it all in time by the end of May.
All right.
And is the site open and running for business right now?
Yes.
It is.
So what was the term of the TCO should be till,
Well, as long as we're on it, and we're talking about the building, Susie has an update too on the interior work.
Nope, I don't,
No,
actually.
she
I
doesn't.
don't.
She-
I wasn't gonna say that at all. I thought you realized
Something else she wants to
I was
say.
looking at the calendar and just thinking, if you wanted to review the, that's a good try though. If you wanted to review the project in March, you could, if you wanted to shoot for the first meeting, I mean, you'd want to ask for it to be submitted by February 22nd. Otherwise, the end of, the 28th of February would give Art sufficient
I'm fine
time
with that.
to review it at the second meeting in March.
I'm personally okay with that. I mean, it's not going to change anything. It's, if we meet with them the
okay,
first
so
or the second.
all right,
I would say the
TCO should go
28th.
out till,
Oh, the TCO, I
Yeah.
think, should go out till May 31st. That is what we gave our Clawson CrossFit over there on Rochester.
okay.
I think that would be reasonable.
Okay.
Consistent.
Yep.
You want to extend that to how long?
28's reasonable, too.
I think it's fine. Okay. So I'll make a motion that we grant or extend the temporary certificate of occupancy for 303 West 14 Mile Road until May 31st under two conditions: that a cash deposit in the amount of $5,686 is deposited with the City of Clawson treasurer, and that items previously noted in other meetings will be completed by the end of May 2018, and that a site plan is submitted by the end of February 2018.
Just one little add on that. Could we add 2018 to that May 31st date, too?
Okay, we wouldn't want to.
Okay.
With that
Apply
added,
that to
I'd
be
support that.
2019.
Oh, okay.
You almost had it. You're so close.
Have a motion, have support. Roll call, please. Excuse me, roll call, please.
You supported? Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Kucera?
Yes.
Mr. McHale?
Yes.
Ms. Prowse?
Yes.
Ms. Scripture?
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
Yes.
Ms. Fenton? Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Agenda item number 8, consideration of a site plan approval for 230 through 250 West 14 Mile Road in the local business B1 district.
This is Clawson Corners. Talked about this one before as well. And you will recall that we had their new tenant here a while ago for a temporary CO as well. And we explained to you at that time that that the city had entered into a development agreement with this applicant to allow for the issuance of that temporary CO and to prescribe a process going forward to address the remaining issues with the site. Principal among those was the existing pole sign, which is non-conforming and has been sunset in its life. So the applicant went to the Zoning Board of Appeals, not to steal our liaison member's thunder, but went to the zoning board of appeals and was granted a variance for a modified sign. I don't remember the exact, well, they're on your plan, the dimensions of that sign. They granted, they chose option 3 that is identified on your plan, as I recall, the one with sort of the rounded top. So it's 14 feet high. It's otherwise conforming, but it's higher to allow it to exist in between parked cars in its current location. So the ZBA found that to be to justify the granting of a variance, and that was granted. And so that resolved the principal issue with respect to the site, but there is not a current site plan on file, and so we have this new site plan to consider. We did sort of an abbreviated review because there's really not, not all that many other things that can happen with the site. And I'll just go through the bullet points. So number 1 was the sign, and it will need to be reconstructed in accordance with the variance granted by the ZBA. Number 2 was an item for you to discuss. The base of the sign is just a hatched pavement area. It's behind an E-wall. It's not particularly visible. There's no irrigation to the area. Typically we would want the base of a sign to be landscaped, but I'll leave it for your discussion as to whether or not that would be appropriate in this situation. Number 3, the site should have street trees. At one time it had street trees. The city removed them. It's unclear how many were there. In looking at historical imagery, I only was ever able to see one. The city manager has indicated that he would he would facilitate replacement of any that the city had removed.
Okay.
But it seems to me, based on the width of the site and the improvements that are out there, that it would be reasonable to have 3 street trees on this site. And so that's our recommendation. Number 4, per the engineering consultant's review, they need to show existing underground and overhead utilities on the site. That will be important in terms of locating the street trees as well. Number 5, there were some issues. They may have been resolved on this iteration of the plan, but certainly the dimensioning issue hasn't been. So all the aisles and drives and such need to be dimensioned, and then the engineering consultant had observed that some of the things were out of scale on at least the prior version of this plan, so those issues will need to be resolved. There's not all that much exterior lighting, but any exterior lighting that's on the site needs to be shown on the site plan and needs to comply with 1035, which is our standard for exterior lighting. And then with respect to off-street parking, just for your information, there are 37 spaces required. There's 42 on the site. Notably, a significant percentage of those are behind the building. So there's really not parking to spare here, even though there are a few extra spaces beyond what's required, because I think the spaces in back are probably only used by employees. At the time that I reviewed this, the owner has told me that this has since been addressed, but Jim has not had a chance to confirm it yet, so I'm going to repeat the comment that there need to be properly marked and configured barrier-free spaces for the site. And then number 8 is, again, just an informational thing. The sidewalk in front of the building is way too narrow, and cars overhang it, and it's almost not usable, but, I don't think it's reasonable to try to address that at this time. I think that's beyond the scope of what's being asked for.
What was that again? Could you repeat?
The sidewalk right in front of the building.
Yeah.
The building walk
Yeah.
you're talking about.
Okay, all right, now I see.
It's only I think it's called out as 4 feet wide.
4 foot.
Parked cars can overhang that. And
Let me ask you this, Greg. When that's addressed in pushing those parking spots back, will that cause any additional issues with?
yeah, well, we don't know because the aisle isn't dimensioned, so we don't know how
Okay.
much room actually have there. Looking at it, it seems like it could be pushed back, but, you know, if the scale is right, but again, the engineering consultant suggested the scale's not all right, so
Okay.
I don't know.
So your suggestion on that is to?
I'm just, you know, it's a review comment. If it was a big issue for you all, then, you know, we ought to study it some more. But I'm not suggesting doing anything about it at this time.
All right, thank you.
And so I'm comfortable with approving this. I suggested 5 conditions there. You know, as I mentioned, the one regarding barrier-free parking may have already been addressed, but if it's already addressed, then that's not a problem. It's already done. But I would still state it until Jim has a chance to confirm that it's been addressed. Happy to answer
Yeah.
any questions, and I know the applicant is here as well.
So we're going for a site plan approval on a site plan that's not completely detailed for us. We're going to want more details added to that.
I think yes, but since we're not proposing to change any of those things, you know, this is information for the record, right?
Okay.
The dimensions of the aisles and the drives and such, you know, I mean, they are, the drives are dimensioned on this one. I think he had reviewed an earlier version, but the aisles are not dimensioned. I mean, none of those things, there's no flexibility to change any of those things at this point, and so I think that's just for the record.
And then how do we deal with, like, item number 6 here, details of the exterior lighting should be provided. And there is exterior lighting on the building, and I've talked to residents that live behind it, and I know that I've had a couple of them say that the lights are shining in their yard, and I know our ordinances now don't allow that. They have to be rotated
Right, so
down.
that's the thing that would have to be changed per the suggested conditions. If they don't comply with, that's what 341035 is meant to prohibit. And so if those exterior fixtures on the rear don't comply with 341035, then they would have to be made to comply.
Okay, so we approve the site plan on those conditions.
Mayor? Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Known the center, owned it forever. On the back of the building, I can address one thing at a time. We have 1, 2, 3 wall packs located on the building. I don't know how, because there's huge backyards for the houses behind it. There's no pole sign lights like we have in the front for the parking lot. There's no other way to do it. It's a wall pack. If you shine it down, you won't have any light for safety and security in the back of the building. So I find it, we've never had a complaint in the back, so I don't know where this came from.
It was just a comment that was made to me, and apparently, as long as it's in compliance with our ordinance, that the lights are directed downward, you know, you shouldn't have a problem with it.
It's a straight wall pack. It's nothing. It's not high. It's not 20 feet high or 15 foot.
Yep.
It's just on the back of the wall.
Okay.
And you need it there for safety and security. A matter of fact, a couple were out, and the police department notified us for safety and security. They want them out because light is a safety issue.
Sure, and I think what the suggestion is just making sure that they are in accordance, you know, that they do fall into what our ordinance is right now. So as long as that's fine, I think that's what we're going to recommend.
Okay.
And one other
And
question.
I'll answer, you know, the other thing you brought up is A, B, or C on the sign schemes. The comment that I made is everybody has an opinion. It doesn't matter to us. Certain people that I've talked to on a mutual like one or the other, it's a matter of taste. Some people like certain types, some people like others. I'm open. What we wanted to do was have our sign company come up with some designs, and we're open to whatever the general consensus is and what blends in to the center and the community. So we're open.
Appreciate
Did you
that.
say the zoning board?
I thought the ZBA picked one, didn't they?
Well, we left it open, and I don't know whether we did or we didn't, but we,
I thought the consensus was that the
The rounded.
the rounded type
I
matched,
did.
The awning. And
the
things like
awning
that.
of the
I
property.
should have brought my notes, but that's what I remember too.
That's fine. I'm happy with that.
Okay.
We're going to have a time frame, obviously, with our Michigan weather that we're involved with here, and I can't, it's hard to get anybody to do anything. And I think the next comment that it's going to come up, if you want me to comment, has to do with the landscaping and the trees that was existing.
Yep.
And back in a site plan, and when my architect went through, he basically copied off the site plan that you had approved in 2002 that was supplied to me by the city. There was no modifications since then, basically other than normal maintenance. And then he went back out, and I think on the revised plan, there were some lighting, but nothing was changed from what was originally done, other than some more modern fixtures. On the pole lights on the front, which I believe there's two, we did replace those heads with the lower wattage LED, which is more efficient and a better light involved. Now, when you deal with the landscape issue, under the pole, under the pylon, it's virtually impossible for maintenance. And I take a look at the property, and you take a look, and I look at it as 1, 2, 3, possibly 4 spots. And I don't know who's controlling, but if you go on the front west corner, what we originally had out here, and I found a picture from the 80s of the center, but I didn't make copies of it, which showed the trees. And what we put out there was landscape boulders. And when they redid the city sewers, lines, took everything, they took those landscape boulders and put those on the front west side of the property. If you can go, yeah, you think you have that area up there. Now, there's 5 boulders, I believe, up there. And then what we did, there's a little landscape bed there, and we have plants that come up every single year there. And it must be nice enough because we have some of the seniors from across the street that see them bloom and like them so much, they cut them and take them home. So it's a nice little area. But the other thing in that particular area, there is electrical and there is plumbing. That supplies the lighting and the sprinkler system that we do have out there.
Okay.
Also, with our wonderful Michigan winters, when there's snow, we have no place to put the snow. It has to be put on that space. And in the event you were to do any kind of tree or something else, I saw a wonderful picture. There was a tree in the middle of a parking lot, the only landscape possible. It showed that area with the snow put up past the tree because there was no place. It was a giant snow hill. In our case, if we have a bad area, that's got to be where it goes. So nothing will survive out there if you end up doing it. It's going to get ruined by the plow.
Are you just for clarification over here, is it the west, the...
Inside our wall,
Yep.
on the west...
Southwest?
southwest side is the area that I'm talking
Okay,
about.
thank you.
So there's
That's
really,
where your snow goes? That's where
the
okay,
snow
okay.
goes when you have it. There's no other place to put it because you have to keep the snow on the property.
Right.
And based on the limitations, now I got on my snow guy. Unfortunately, his truck broke down, but that was a different issue. We got that because we make sure we maintain the lot as well as the sidewalk out there.
Okay.
It was a funny snow because it snowed from 3 a.m. till 8 a.m. and it was a tough time.
Yeah.
But what we originally had, I think the light, which is directly in the front of the property, got replaced. There, to the west of that, there was a large tree that got removed, and we did put in a ornamental tree where the light pole is in the middle section to the east of that. Now, somewhere or other that's gone, but that's on the site plan that you had from 2002. Now, if we go one section over, which is our drive between us and the gas station, Normally, I'd say that would be a good place for a tree, but somebody decided to put a bus stop there and a cement approach. I'd love to swap that out, get rid of it, and I'll put a tree there. I hate that bus stop and the debris and everything that's there. There's no place to do it. Now, when you go, so theoretically what you have, there were 2 trees. You take the middle area, there's a light pole. One theoretically can be on both sides of that. I understand that the city had no problem replacing those. Then you take the other area, which is from the drive to the apartments, going in front of that little area. If you go over one more right in there, that's the apartment drive. It's hard really to do anything in there. There's a tree that is on the apartment side on the wall.
You can see that in the decorative brick wall image.
Yeah, it's right in there. We've had to trim that a little bit because they don't maintain it. But there's really not more than you can do other than what's there. Other than my thought is, we'd like to move maybe those landscape boulders and put one over there.
But then what about the snow?
Well, I can leave the boulder there, but I'm talking on that little section. They can they can put snow over the boulder.
Okay.
But I'm talking instead of a tree, which maybe wants on that section, let's take some of those boulders and put that on the green belt between the sidewalk and the street.
No. Boulders?
No.
Yeah, they're landscape boulders. No?
See, it looks like someone just dumped something there and drove away.
Oh, well, that's what they did on the property, but those are nice-looking boulders. I love them at my house, but they're a fortune to move.
I
So,
couldn't imagine having boulders just sitting in the front of your property.
well, I'm talking about on the
You
green
talking about
belt.
where the light pole is?
Yeah, like using the other drive on the green belt between the sidewalk and the street.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine how that could
No.
ever
The intention is to have more
Why-
greenery, not
why-
less greenery.
That green belt where the light is, why do you feel there's not enough area to put a tree there?
There were trees there. The city removed them when they did the sewer system, and they replaced it.
Okay, so Greg, if the city removed them,
Well,
can
as
we?
I say, I find evidence there was 1 tree that was removed, and the city manager said, he'd see to it that tree was put back.
So then we're
But-
talking about trying to find space for 2 more.
But, it seems to me there's room for 3.
There's at least room for 3.
Can we get
In
rid of the
addition to
boulders?
that one?
Well, where would you put
He's saying there's some underground stuff where the boulders are, and
Of course, and assuming that we actually can put the trees there, of course. Like
I would
like to
avoid,
see-
so I would avoid the space where the fire hydrant is. You can put it in that corner on the property where the boulders are. I don't understand why.
Then are you going to get rid of the tree that's on the apartment side right there on the wall?
Whose responsibility is that?
Why
Not
would we have
mine,
to do that?
but that
Okay,
would
well, why would we
overlap
need to,
it.
why would we need to get rid of it?
He thinks it's going to overlap.
But it's going to
doesn't matter.
overlap, it's going to cover each other because it's right there.
Perfect, that's what we
But-
need. We
yeah,
need more
but-
of that.
But then what do we do about our snow? Do we put over the tree and they push it down? If it goes in that front area?
You put snow in that area right now?
Yeah, we have no choice. Snow has to stay on the property.
Yeah,
I'd
I
love
see-
to
I see
push
what
it,
you're
I'd
saying.
love to
There's-
push it on the street, but I can't.
Do you not put it in the back?
What bed?
The back of the property.
I have a parking situation. There's only so much space. I have limitations. I wish I had more room. That back area is used.
I have a hard time understanding this, because we never had an issue with any other property as far as having a space for snow and having a landscape that would be designated for a space to plow and put the snow in. I guess I have a hard time understanding
Well,
that.
let me ask this question though. But we're talking about where you currently put the snow, where those rocks are sitting. So if he continues, like, could we leave that area the way it is, have him still have that for snow? Because I can see where he would have a problem. Like, you have the snow, he can't put it in the back because he's got parking back there. So if he was left that, but if we got the front of the building with 3 trees there, like, that to me seems like a larger area. And don't we want to have that covered? I mean, the area that's got the rocks right now, if there weren't a tree there, or Glenn, plants and trees well, is there a tree that could sit there that could be inundated with snow like that and still not have a problem?
Yeah,
Well,
any.
let me say, there's 5
Any
additional,
tree there.
there are 5
Yeah, but
additional
here-
parking
here- here's what
spaces,
he's-
right?
Well,
Beyond
I mean,
what's required.
think about it. I mean, if you're going to plow snow, these guys are landscape guys. They do, most of the guys who are plowing snow mow lawns, right? They understand as far as what they're going to be putting the snow on and how to do it. They're not just going to just plow it over.
That is an
That's-
assumption, though, and because now I see what you're saying, but
Who
there.
do you have for your
Yeah, who's
service?
your snow removal company?
I mean, is it Belbot?
Right.
No offense, but they're not brain surgeons and they're not
I
landscapers. I
understand.
mean,
Trust me, I got free landscaping this year because they could destroy part of my property.
I also
I
have
get
that
that.
underground electrical there, and again, the way things grow, what happens, it becomes a whole different issue. And
So-
it's also behind a 30-inch wall.
Okay.
So, you know,
I don't know why.
I guess as far as, so we have previous existing, an existing condition before, whatever. Anyway, the fact that we had trees there, and it was the city's maintenance, and they should be considered with the city as far as what to put there.
Well, we can figure out who's paying for them based on what was actually taken out. But in terms of where they should be,
Yeah.
right, I don't see the problem with having one next to the bus stop. In fact, I think
No, I
that's
think that
be
should
the
be
first
there.
place you'd want it to
Absolutely.
be.
Is it the
Absolutely.
responsibility of the property owner, though, to put a tree on the city's right-of-way?
It's his responsibility to put them on the 5 feet that are on his side of
on
the
his
property.
property.
And since he can't, or doesn't want to, because he wants to keep his parking there, we're allowing him to satisfy his requirement by placing them in the right of way.
And the city at times goes around and plants trees on the city right-of-way. I've talked to Harry about
Right.
this, and when the trees are available, he's,
Well, the DPW does that actually,
put
but
it
yeah, that's a program, and Susie got a grant for it, for next year as well. But, and so that might be one of the trees. That's not really germane to our
Yeah.
discussion. Our discussion about the site plan is how many street trees and where are they gonna go? And
I
I'm
think-
suggesting that you could have, my review is that you could have 3 out front. One next to the bus stop is perfectly fine.
I agree.
Yes.
You could have 2 in the middle.
Yep.
Yes, I'm good with
To where
that.
the light pole is.
Yes.
agree.
Do
Yeah,
want
because you
my-
don't want it by the fire hydrant.
Right, don't want it by the fire.
So, yeah, I agree.
Agreed.
well, what's to stop, just being plain devil's advocate here, but he's got a variance on the sign to raise it 10 foot higher so you can see it past this wall. Now, is there anything to stop or prevent the city from coming in and planting a bunch of trees on the right-of-way, which would block the view of the signage?
No.
There's not, but it's highly improbable that that's gonna happen.
It's an
Why,
unlikely
why is it
situation.
improbable? Tree's going to grow. Why is it improbable?
I said it's improbable that the city's gonna come and plant a bunch of trees on his right of way to block his sign.
But over time, it will happen.
Over time, they'll grow above his sign, which is what we wanna have
So
happen.
as it grows up higher, you take down, okay.
That's why you want a tall canopy, right? So if you got something that's at least 50 to 60 feet, you
That's
shouldn't
true.
have
That
that much
makes
of a
sense.
So
problem.
you want him to plant trees on his piece of property and then,
Well, I thought that as far as that corner spot being his responsibility, that makes sense. But I can agree with Greg saying, forget it. Just we'll allow a 3 in the front.
Take a look at that?
And where we just discussed, 2 in the larger portion of the right of way.
On the right-of-way.
And then 1 over by the bus stop, which I guess we don't address amenities in this area, is that right? Okay.
No.
Just make sure.
that picture you're looking at is sometime from the 80s, when we pictured, and that was when Get and Go Mini Mart was in there. I think Doug Brown had his accounting office in there, a former mayor. I don't know if anybody wanted to see that.
Yeah, I do, because actually that helps, because I'm looking at the canopy tree right now, and it starts to branch out above that sign as it is currently. I think it's a great addition to the site. It looks really nice, so.
That was an old tree that they took down.
Sure,
I hated to
yeah.
see it go.
Yeah, it sucks.
And it was high enough, but
Yeah. So I think we are kind of in agreement with the other trees. I would like to address the landscaping at the bottom of the sign. I'm looking at the site. I don't see how that is going to work. I would love to put more green on any site that we have, but if anybody wants to add a comment to that.
No, you're not going to have any landscaping underneath the sign. I mean,
Okay.
you're going to,
It's not going to be visible.
no,
It had to be too
he'd have to
tall.
maintain it, and
Yep.
it doesn't sound like that's
Yep.
going to happen.
You got a wall there,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. All right, so.
and the sun won't get to it then.
All right, so we can knock that one off, which is
So,
good.
the one thing noticing from the picture, all right, so the right-of-way, does it extend into the area, the sidewalk?
Should be
To the
just on
wall?
inside of, you see the dark, bold dashed line there, that's the right of way.
And that's right where his
Okay.
the wall is, right? The screen wall?
Yeah.
So the grass between the sidewalk and the retaining wall is still right-of-way responsibility of the city?
Yeah.
There is no grass.
There's
There
no
is like
grass, it's
nothing.
right up
It's
against the sidewalk.
It's all concrete.
Sidewalk
I mean,
wall.
it's nice the fact that from the old picture, it looks like you've got some, what are those?
Junipers.
Thank you. I was having the same problem in the earlier discussion. What the heck with it? Thank you.
I had them in my house. We had to
Yeah,
get rid of
I
them.
mean-
They grow like weeds,
Yeah,
but, you know.
But they're soften the,
Weeds
the-
are nice when you don't.
I mean, between something that's green and a retaining wall,
Right.
I
Well, I
like
think
to
that
soften that
changed
up.
when the road work was done, which also was,
Yeah, I mean, but that's up to the city to do that, and I don't, well, anyway, that's,
I've been in this business a long time, and I have no problems with small little bushes, but the problem is when you do them on the right-of-way, they're kind enough to put salt on the road, and that's great to kill a lot of this stuff.
yeah, and
we
we've had that
and-
discussion ad nauseum, and I don't
Yeah.
want to bring it up here. But as far as, you know, you take a look at that picture and like, wow, that's kind of what we were trying to get to again for, especially down 14 Mile Road, right? So, I mean, we've got wide expanses of that part of the road where there's nothing there.
And we've already asked for those trees to go into Haberman's and all that
Yeah,
other stuff,
yeah.
so now we're starting to build that back up
Yeah.
all the way down.
So we're in agreement then that we want to see three trees there, correct?
Yeah, and I think the spots are bus stop section,
Andy, can
and
you
then
pass
two
the
in
picture
the,
down this way?
and then two in the center.
But with their location, that would be designated by the DPW?
correct.
We're not planting trees on Harry's property, you know, it's, Harry's in charge of that.
Oh, we could let Harry plant trees on Harry's property.
Hey, we've gotten
you
in trouble
go.
before for sticking too big of a tree under electrical lines.
No,
you know,
that
so-
was,
Yeah.
I don't want to get into
Debunked.
that, but that was,
Okay.
that was completely
Okay.
false. That was, they should never have done that.
Can you pass that picture along? It's right here at Ledge.
DPW took them out. Let's let them
Plus,
suggest that they put them back.
I mean, if we had,
Gosh, that does look good
I'll refrain.
with those.
Well, it could have been
If
Oakland
we
County
need
that
to
took 'em
make a
out.
contribution for one of the tree, I have no problems doing anything that benefits the property, the city.
Yeah.
We're all in favor.
We just want to make sure we're being reasonable as well. We know that you went through some things with the sign, so,
Nah.
you know, trying to be,
Okay.
trying our best to, you know, make the property fit what we're going for as well, while still trying to, you know, be business friendly.
I have two other questions, and I don't know if this is the right point. One of the things that got mentioned to me, site plans are good for a certain period of time. I think that was a question. The other thing is, I do have Fantastic Sam's under a TCO. I'd like to make sure she gets permanent, so everybody can sleep at night if they can do that here. And I'll leave it to the board.
So so the site plans don't expire as quickly as they used to under your new amendments. They, in fact, if nothing changes, they stay in effect. But, and with regard to the TCO, you granted it for 60 days on November 20, on your November 28th meeting. It doesn't necessarily run from the 28th. It ran from whenever Jim actually issued the CO, but it's good at least through the end of this month. What we're going to need if we're going to extend that then is to either have the site work done or, as we did with the last property, have a security deposit for some form of security for the incomplete items. And so we don't really have estimates to address that tonight, but we could address that if we need to at your next meeting in January, when we have that information.
I will be out of town.
You can send a check, so.
I think you already got a couple.
Western Union, all right. So,
That answer your question?
I don't know what the question, I'm
right.
not quite sure we are. I'm more concerned, you got Fantastic Sam's in there. We're very close to a resolution. I think the main thing we have has to do with the landscape trees. I think everything else has been resolved. I'd like to see Anessa, who's been in the community, who's on pins and needles, just give her a certificate of occupancy. We're working in a goal to get this thing done, and I think it would be to everybody's benefit, including goodwill.
So in order for that to happen, Greg, we need to address this at our very next meeting, correct? And put a dollar amount, and then relay that to him as far as the bond that he's going to need to put up for the remaining work.
Yeah, I'm not, as I say, I'm not sure when Jim actually issued the CO,
Okay.
so it may be that there's more time than that, but it's at least that much time. So, well, if we need to have it on the next agenda, we'll put it on the next agenda.
Is he issued the trees? Is that where we're at on this? That's strictly
So,
it?
Whatever the conditions are tonight, will need to be reflected on your site plan, right?
Because I thought he went through and on the revised plan that we submitted, there were lighting on there, which was existing. The parking was up for scale. I'm not sure which drawings were on. I've looked at so many already.
No, there's no lights on this one, and,
No.
there's dimensions missing and so on, the things we talked about.
Because there was underground that was done, that was supplied, that was put on the plan by Harry Drinkwine. And the architect did put that on the revised drawings because it had to do with the underground, the electrical, water, which was supplied.
Okay. And so then if you in fact already striped the barrier-free spots and signed them, and Jim looks at that and that's okay, then that's resolved. And then, at that point, we would be down to the 3 trees.
Which is, I believe, all you're after. I think we were said everything was okay, and I think that was supplied. It may be, there were some larger sets of drawings. We've done so many revisions, working with everybody, trying to get it done.
If nothing else, there's some dimensions, the exterior lighting, and the 3 street trees that need to be shown on a revision of the site plan that we can stamp and put in the file and give back to you as the record copy of the site plan. So that'll have to happen, and then if, we'll decide based on what's not complete, what the planning commission will decide if security is required for extension of the temporary certificate of occupancy. It may be that if it's
Right.
only the trees and, it's 1 tree, you don't feel like you have to have a guarantee, and the city manager's gonna put in a tree or whatever. You may not need a deposit, but as we sit here, we don't know what that is yet.
So we're going to motion for a site plan approval with conditions.
Correct.
Sure, but so just, so we're clear, so the responsibility of the trees is,
We're not clear.
Yeah, well, no, this site plan needs to have 3 street trees.
Okay.
Right? If he can talk outside of the planning commission realm with the city manager about how they're gonna get it planted, but for this site to be in compliance, there's gonna need to be 3 street trees.
So it's irrelevant for
Not
us
really
who's
relevant
paying-
to this
just
discussion.
okay,
paying
so
the
as far as
trees.
being.
We're just deciding what the
Okay.
site plan needs to
So
look like.
compliant by when? For the trees?
When
You don't
When do
need
they-
to specify a date. It's a continuing condition of the site plan approval forever. As long as the site plan is in effect, there shall be 3 street trees.
A condition of our TCO, right?
No,
At
we
the
gotta
next
address that later when we know what
Okay, I got you.
we're dealing with.
I guess my concern is that, okay, we rely on him or we rely on DPW to put the trees in, and it'll be possibly non-compliant, and who do we go to?
I think the suggestion is we're putting we're relying on the property owner to put the trees in, but he has an option after this is accepted to go to the city and work with them to put the trees in.
Yeah, it's on
Well,
the
and-
Impression the city was going to replace trees they took out.
Okay, so,
That's where we're confused.
no, good call, good call.
So it's like what we did with Noble Appliance, right? They also cannot put trees on their right-of-way, and they have to put it on the public right-of-way. Those are shown on their plan. Their exact locations will be determined by DPW, but it is still their responsibility to install the trees. The wrinkle in this particular instance is that the city removed trees decades ago. So, and there's discussions that still need to be had as to whether or not the city is going to pay for all, some, or none, right? So, I guess from my perspective, you just have to you should look at it as we treated Noble. They're responsible for the trees.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's a site design issue, right? We're not deciding issues of equity here, right? We're just deciding to be compliant with your
We're not-
requirement for street trees.
We don't care who plants them.
We don't care who
As
plants
long as
them.
they're there.
But
That gets
that's my
worked out
point, so when it
outside
gets
of
to-
our purview.
No, but what we're saying is it's this property owner's responsibility. If you want to go to the city and say, listen, there were trees here previously and I want you to look at records, and if you took out 3 trees, maybe they cover 3 trees. Maybe they say, no, we only had 1 tree and we remove 1 tree, they cover 1, you're responsible for 2. But we are saying that he, as the property owner, is responsible for those 3 trees. Are we in agreement with that?
Question, there were conversations with Mr. Drinkwine that said we would replace the trees we took out.
If you get him to do that, that's great.
Between you and
See,
them.
what we're not
Not
going
us.
into that situation. We're not going into your situation that you've had with Harry Drinkwine. That's up to you to take care of that. We're simply saying to you that you are responsible for 3 trees. If you get the city to cover all 3, great for you. If you can't and the city says no, you're still responsible for whatever trees they're not going to cover.
Correct.
Does that make
And
sense?
in that way, we're treating everybody the same. Because everybody that comes here is responsible for their street trees, whether they can accommodate them on their property or whether they get the city's permission to put them in the right-of-way because it's inconvenient for them to plant them on their own property.
But I still don't see how it gets done, is he thinks it's the city's
It
responsibility.
gets done because you required it.
Sure, but as far as who then is, if he thinks it's the city's
And
responsibility.
he's in violation of his site plan, and we
But if
call
the
him
city
back in.
said-
Right, it's
Yes.
pretty clear. I don't.
Is that where we go?
Well, I guess my point is that I'm still not sure as far as whether the city would do that. Are we,
But we don't
Yeah, but we
care.
You
keep
don't
saying
care.
that, but Glenn, you
He
bring
has
up a point
nothing
that
to
we don't have
talk to the
worry
city
about.
manager about
That's
until you require him to
It's not
plant
our
3 street trees.
responsibility
okay,
to be
all
clear with
right,
that.
as long as he understands, that's your
But
responsibility.
no, well, let me ask you a question. I mean, unfortunately, John Kinsup left.
I'm trying to
I
get
bring
him
it up
to
with
understand as far as
But
where
if
his
there were-
responsibility is. It doesn't sound like
But
it.
if they were there
Yes.
and somebody removed them and the property, we maintain it, but we don't own that
Mm-hmm.
property, whose responsibility is to replace what they took out? Under
I think
common
at this
law,
point,
it'd be the
it's
person that
irrelevant.
built it. It's nice to
We
say
shouldn't be
pass
having
it
this
to us,
discussion.
but I don't know if that's
But we shouldn't be,
fair.
sir, I apologize, but we can't have that discussion. We don't have authority to tell you whose responsibility it is. We don't do that. We're simply saying, and it's pretty clearly stated, you have the responsibility for 3 trees. We're agreeing to that tonight. You now have a responsibility with the city to determine what's their responsibility, what's yours. That's all we have, that's all we can really discuss on this.
Correct. That's exactly right. You are requiring him to plant 3
Yeah.
trees. If he wants to go talk to somebody about that requirement that's now imposed on him, great. But this is a new site plan, just like any other new site plan. You know, when we had when we had the site plan come in here prior to this, we didn't go look historically at what used to be on that site and
No,
whether or not
absolutely.
it
You're
was
absolutely right. Yeah.
equitable for
So
us
that's-
to
and that's
require
my
it to be
point, right?
replaced.
To you, that you're thinking that because the
The
city
new site
removed
has to
them, that
comply.
you're not responsible. You are still
You're putting it
responsible.
on me, and then I have whatever actions I need to take to
Exactly,
get them in.
exactly.
I
I want to make
understood.
sure you're clear on it, so.
Where's my
okay.
son attorney?
Okay, I just want to make sure,
I told him
and
to
that's my
sit back
point.
and listen.
Right,
Yeah.
so the
So
fact that
our,
who
our
gets it?
option is we ask for this, we request this, and then next year, if we drive by, we don't see any trees there.
He's in compli- he's
then
not
we'll call you
compliant.
back in for a show cause, and you're gonna have to give us justified
Exactly.
reason for not putting the trees in.
That's my point. Okay.
There are
Okay.
trees there.
I have an item. I've got my item on
You
this
know where I
now.
live. That's all.
Okay, so as long as you're clear on that.
How does this affect Fantastic Sam's?
They're temporary, their CO is going to continue to be temporary until
We're
the
gonna have
site
to extend it.
improvements are all done.
Okay, so this
We
will
get
not
her to be
interfere with,
permanent.
this will not interfere with
Everything's
their
done.
occupancy then? Is that correct? They can conduct business as usual?
Yes.
Okay,
Right,
I
she has
just
to-
want to make that point perfectly clear.
We can
that,
keep extending the temporary, but we're not gonna give them a permanent until the site plan is approved. That's my understanding.
Till all the site improvements are complete. That's,
Yeah,
that's
because
the
I
way
mean,
it
I don't
works.
want to deter a business from
But I see
starting
no
and
reason that we
maintaining.
would not.
Yeah, unfortunately, her attorney's going to have a field day with me with this, so I don't know if there's a way, since we're on the right goal, that can be waived and get her to be permanent.
Not-
She's not going anywhere, and I don't think anybody wants her
Without a
gone.
complete signed-off site plan, I don't think we're gonna go that far.
Yeah, we couldn't,
But-
because if we did,
But
then
at the same time, I think we're all reasonable people. We're not going to shut that down because of that. We will continue
So let me ask a stupid question.
Understand.
Does that mean until the 3 trees are actually installed, she's going to be under a TCO?
That is correct.
It does mean that.
That gives her the right to, I believe, cancel the lease and her attorney to have a field day with me.
I mean, it's not incredibly uncommon though across the board. This is not unique to our community. I mean, these are just things that happen. So that is what it means though.
So I would suggest that you're thinking as far as terms of timing, that trees get in by May 31st. And as long as you maintain that, I'm not going to suggest it, and I'm not saying that, but you should consider that, right?
You know what the weather will be then?
A lot better than it is
It'll be,
now.
I
be
hope
sunny
so.
and
You could plant a tree now if you could get into the ground.
Again, that's something I guess we'll have with city engineer and
Yep.
Discuss.
So,
You amicable with this, or
I guess so.
throw a motion out?
it's going to be.
Tell him what he's got to do.
Okay. So, as far as, I'd like to make a motion that we grant site plan approval for 230 through 250 West 14 Mile Road under the following conditions. First, that it's subject to approval from the Department of Public Works Director, that we place 3 large, deep-rooted canopy trees, not to be less than 50 feet in maturity.
Can I ask a question
Sure.
before you proceed?
Sure.
I know something came up, there's underground, there's sewer, there's water, there's something they did.
That's what the DPW director
Yep.
figures out for you.
Have that it's required.
Yep.
But if he says you can't do it, where are we?
Then you're coming back here, but he reviewed the plans, all our plans go through a process where he checks off on it, and so it'll get worked out.
Subject to his
You-
approval?
you should- Yes, the
Right.
exact locations. He will work it out with you. You show him on the site plan, he'll field locate the exact locations when you're ready to plant them.
So we could say suggested deep root.
No.
Pending.
No,
It's gonna be,
required.
that's what it is, but where it's located is determined between, up to DPW.
area.
But we were recommending where the location should be is the center right-of-way and by the bus stop.
Oh, I don't have a problem with that. That's the most logical spot, but then with that 12-foot drain underneath there.
Then we might as well not have any trees in the city. Now, that's
No,
not
I'm
an
just
option.
saying, at that particular area.
Yeah, but that
you know,
goes
do we
through
wanna go
all
deep?
long, that goes through all of
Yeah.
14 Mile. I mean,
Yeah, okay, we got Roto-Rooter.
all right. Where were you? Okay, where was I? So that the 3 trees that be planted at the 14-mile right-of-way in front of the site. Number 2, utility locations shall be shown on the site plan. 3, the plan shall be properly dimensioned and scaled. 4, details of exterior lighting shall be provided, and all exterior lighting shall comply with LDR Section 34-1035. Number 2, properly configured and marked barrier-free marking spaces shall be provided. 6, that the modified pylon sign shall be in accordance to Scheme 3 as presented to the ZBA. And that we grant, we're doing TCO on this, or no?
No,
Okay,
not-
I was going to
not
say, all
tonight.
right. I think that's, am I missing anything? I think that's it.
Anything,
That's it.
Yeah.
we all set?
that sounds right.
Yeah, I think we got it all.
Support?
I have a motion, I have support. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. McHale?
Yes.
Ms. Prowse?
Yes.
Ms. Scripture?
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
Yes.
Ms. Benton?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Kucera?
Yes.
All right.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay. Agenda item number 9, consideration of approval of sign concepts for 45 East 14 Mile Road in the city center district.
So as you recall, when we approved the new site plan for this property, you conditioned that approval on the sign concept for the new signs coming back before you for approval, which is actually required now for the city center district. And we received the plan that was, the drawing that was in your packet from the architect for that purpose. They show a couple of examples, and, oh my God.
We run out of time?
They show a couple of examples and a note describing the characteristics of what all the signs will be. We previously approved the locations and dimensions, and so it's really that note, which I can't read because it's too small.
There you go, there you go. Really hard to read.
You watching The Good Place lately?
All channel letters on Raceway. Raceway color to match attaching surface color. And then all lighting to be LED.
And UL approved city sign size requirement shall not exceed 24 square feet.
The dimensions actually vary from spot to spot a little bit. Some of them are not that big, but, so in any event, the idea is that they're all channel letters on Raceway, LED, internal LED lighting, and they match the particular, they're color coordinated, if you will.
Are these box signs?
They are none of them box signs. They're all individual letters on a Raceway. And so, property owner is here if you want to talk to him about it, but I think this is sufficient for providing guidance so that all those signs will be coordinated as you wanted with both the architecture of the new facade and one another. And so I think this fulfills the goal and of your condition. If you agree, I'd ask for you to approve this as an addition to the site plan package for this site.
But we don't have any examples, real examples, color examples,
I do not have a color rendering, no.
markups.
Why are our prints getting so small here? Is it
Yeah.
eye check here?
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened. I had to print this one from email, so I may not have sized it correctly. I
That
don't.
particular one is in existence already.
Water?
It was up there, it was pulled down, it was,
When you say that particular one, are you talking water to go?
yes,
Okay.
that particular sign.
Oh, that one, okay.
It was actually a color photograph that was superimposed into that position, and they were able to calculate out the signage size so that it would fit perfectly for what the dimensions are.
Okay.
I have photographs of that particular water to go sign. Like I said, you've probably driven by it 1,000 times. The other sign was Noble Fish, which they're in process of manufacturing a brand-new sign.
Oh, wow.
And that one is pretty much just a artist's rendering of what it would be under that description that we put up there.
I'm just trying to understand, there was a mention of color coordination, and I don't know what that really means,
So they reference,
cross brands.
Well, as far as I was concerned, what they were before was like red and something color coordinated to where the city wouldn't have a problem putting that up, or
I mean, all signs.
we don't want neon green. We want something that's going to look appropriate. And that's what, from our understanding, the tenants now are supposed to be coming before the board with their drawings and/or photographs of and sizes of whatever they got.
Well,
And
they won't actually do that. Once this is approved, this will set the guidelines, and
Okay.
they can come in and apply for their permits administratively. As long as they comply with these guidelines, then,
They'll be
you know, they
accepted,
can get
yeah.
a sign permit.
But you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying the water-to-go sign that was up there prior to your remodeling, they're going to put that one back up, which was a nice-looking sign, and
Right.
Noble Fish is going to do the same?
No, Noble Fish is rendering a new sign.
And then I'm assuming the cafe and Flipside are doing the same thing, new signs?
Cafe is not going to be putting up any signs,
No signs at all? Okay, well,
no. We're,
it's a
I can't discuss that.
great way to
right
grow your
now.
business.
But no, they will not be putting up those old cruddy-looking box
Okay,
signs.
good.
It's going to be the raceway signs with block letter or whatever type of letter that is right there, that was included there.
Fantastic.
So then my question for the city is, as you're approving these one by one, how are you going to think about color coordination? What does that mean? Why are we including that if that's still up to the discretion of the tenants?
Yeah, well, I mean, the architect proposed this. I mean, it's to match attaching surface color, and then he gives the Sherwin-Williams, color there.
Can't read.
For the raceway, for the part that attaches to the building.
Right, so that it doesn't stand out on its.
Oh, I see.
Okay, so we're not actually
the
referring
letters-
to coordinating the
Oh,
signage.
so we don't have sign color.
So it's the raceway that's coordinated, not the, okay.
Correct, correct.
So colors are out, colors are up
So-
for grabs, I guess.
So the signs would be
They're
approved.
same style, but they're not proposing to dictate colors.
Signs would be approved by administration. They would not be coming in front of us again.
Correct. And
Well,
so I
for all that
misstate.
matter, you wouldn't want all black and white signs anyways.
Right.
No,
I-
no.
that's what I was
I mean, I
gonna-
don't know that you have to dictate color.
Right.
You're dictating the style, so that you don't have box sign and channel letters and halo lit sign, a
Style
bunch of
and-
disparate
and
things.
That
And
was
the
our
size
understanding.
limitation, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't recall even putting that out there to try to dictate the colors.
No, I misunderstood the way this is written. It's the
So did I.
raceway.
Yeah, I'm glad
coordinated
you asked
raceway.
that question. Yeah.
We did that basically so the raceway becomes hidden.
Yeah. And that's a
That
good
makes
touch,
sense,
yeah.
Yeah.
Side didn't say, they're still going to put up on their sign,
Flipside is planning on putting up a sign.
a sign.
Their sign currently is too large
Too large, okay.
Conforming.
by a few feet. At that point, because of that, and he comes before you guys, it's your ordinance on that one. We
Is-
can't really say, we can't point a finger and say, you got to, this is up to you guys at this point.
You'd have
At
to
this
go to the
point.
ZBA for that.
What about minimum size? Because I think we're going for conformity, right? So it can't exceed this, but do we have anything that's dictating?
We didn't dictate a minimum. I think it's unlikely that anybody's going to want it smaller than they're allowed, but
Well, you'd be surprised with how
It's
cost
really
conscious.
small.
yeah,
That's,
theoretically they could.
Water to go is 12 square feet because they're on the side.
Yep.
And at that time, the ordinance said the ones on
Yeah.
the side had to be 12 square feet.
Okay.
So
That's
he
right.
did his due diligence in
Yep.
getting a sign that is right in.
That makes sense. Yeah, and I
in the
do remember that
ballpark.
conversation when you guys were here before.
Right.
All right. I mean, nobody else has any concern with that? Okay, leave it. Good to go.
Awesome.
What you've done so far, the building looks great, by the way. I like that a lot.
Thank you. We're just nearing completion of Mother Nature, that rotten, well, I won't say. But she's been really tough on us.
Kidding.
I can't believe you guys were working through that. Like,
Yeah.
I was pretty impressed.
Well, they had to stop for about a week and a half, and they were out there again today. They're finishing the last wall on Tenera, or whatever, that cafe. That wall, I can't even say, I've only been associated with this for a little while, and this cafe name is driving me nuts. Anyways, that's the last wall. Water to go wall is done, the hair salon wall is done. That's the last remaining 12 feet. And then they have to grout the tiles.
So they're
And
going to
then-
grout the tile. Okay, yeah, that's right. Okay,
And then the soffits, and then we're done.
cool.
Looks great.
Yeah, I know, we're getting excited about it.
And you
I'm
don't-
tired of driving out here.
Where do you live? There's not enough dirt around the
Farmington
building
Hills.
to force a tree on, you know?
Not for this one.
No, good.
But you know what, there is, I hate to be a tree issue thing, but one of the tenants, flip side, was complaining about how one of the city trees is actually blocking, or was blocking his sign, his signage. So that's something we take up with the DPW? Okay, that's all I need to know.
I think as far as, there was a complaint in years past, they used to have pears, which was even more dense than what they have currently.
Well,
So,
it's tall.
Yeah,
And
these
yeah,
are-
that's the
these are
intent, right?
these
You
are
want a taller tree to get out of the way of the sign.
The new
Right,
improved
right.
locust trees, yeah.
Don't get me started.
Yeah, but it's,
I mean, yeah, we talk about the tall trees, but it does take a little time for them to get there. So it's an absolutely
Yeah.
it's getting there. It's a
relevant
nice full tree
statement.
though, but
I don't know
we
how correct
understand
this
what you're
picture is
saying.
on
Yeah.
Google, but it does block the sign
Yep.
Yeah.
right now. But again, I don't know how correct the picture is.
Okay.
it's pretty close to what you're seeing.
Ooh, we have officers? Do we wanna- do
We need
wanna-
to finish this
want a
first. We need a
motion
motion to approve
Oh, I'm
the
sorry,
sign
yeah,
rendering.
yeah, Dort, sorry.
No, you're doing so well.
All right.
no trees involved in this.
No, of course not.
And plus, he didn't write anything out, so you're gonna have to make this one up.
Yeah, tell me about it. All right, let's see, I'd like to make a motion that we grant site plan.
I think you
No,
could just say
just
that you
approval
approve
of
the
signs.
sign rendering.
Oh, sign, okay, so that was, sounds like I'll buy that. Okay,
As
so that
a site
will-
plan addition?
The revision to the site plan with the sign
Sign
plan
design.
as provided for this meeting.
Or concepts?
More
Renderings,
concept, it's the
concept.
design.
Sign design.
Sign design.
Start again?
So I would make a motion to approve the submitted
design.
sign design as a revision or an addition to the previously submitted and approved site plan.
I'll support that.
Have a motion, have support. Are we done? Roll call, please.
Mr. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Gritcher?
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
Yes.
Ms. Benton?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Kucera?
Yes.
Mr. McAllen?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Great
Thanks
job.
for hanging in
New
there
Year.
tonight. Appreciate it. Thanks for all the hard work.
I thought we already had that done.
It's coming to an end.
Very good. Item number 10 is public discussion. Items not on the agenda. Anyone from the public wishing to say anything? Seeing none, public discussion is closed. Other business.
Election of officers.
Election of officers. Yes, we have 4 people that terms have expired.
Well, I don't, yeah, I
don't
think
think it's an issue.
you're composed of who you're composed of right now, and so it's appropriate for any of you to be able to be nominated. I mean, typically, the way you do it is you'd open for nominations.
Yep.
Any nominations, you vote on then, and go from there.
I'll start. I'd like to nominate Greg for, was it president, chairman? Chairman?
We call him chair, chairperson,
Chair.
Vice chair.
not
chair.
king or not
As
president.
chair. As
What are
chair.
the bylaws? Is there not
Yeah, just
a
point of
meeting to
order.
nominate and then a separate meeting to vote?
I don't
does it
believe
say?
that's required. I think you just have nominations and then
Subsequent vote.
then an election.
Point of order. Can you elect to have status quo?
Typically, you elect each office each year.
Go through the formal
Yep.
rendition of that? Okay.
Good
just
try,
one.
good try.
Yeah, that would have been a good try.
Why wouldn't this be an agenda item?
Because I forgot to put it on the agenda.
Because it's 9:35 on a Tuesday night.
Understand,
We can work till 10.
it's your first meeting of the year,
Did
sadly.
you want to put, well, it should
No,
be,
it's
it's always been the first meeting. Yeah, I should have been on the, yeah.
So do you want to finish nominating?
Okay, so
Mr.
you have a
Greg Kucera
nomination for-
Chair?
Greg, I would like to nominate Greg for chair.
Second.
As for any other nominations?
Yep.
And so that's all we need to say. We don't need a vote cut on that, or?
No,
You'll have
we
a
need to
vote if
add-
there are no other
Are
nominations.
there any other nominations?
Would anybody else like to throw their name in the hat? No,
No, thank you.
you've done a great job.
So you call the roll on that nomination.
Roll, please.
Ms. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Scripture?
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
Yes.
Ms. Benton? Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Pacera?
Yes.
Mr. McHale?
Yes.
Vice Chair?
I nominate Mr. Shepherd as vice chair.
I support that.
Yep.
Any other nominations?
Roll call, please.
Ms. Scripture?
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Reluctantly.
Yes.
Ms. Benton? Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Pacera?
Yes.
Mr. McHale?
Yes.
Ms. Kraus?
Yes.
Secretary?
Secretary. Who's secretary now?
I will nominate Ms. Prowse
Second.
Any other
as
nominations?
secretary.
Got nomination, got support. Roll call, please.
Ms. Scripture?
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
Yes.
Ms. Benton?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Pacera?
Yes.
Mr. McHale?
Yes.
Ms. Kraus?
Yes. It feels weird to vote on that yourself.
Done?
That's all of officers.
I have nothing else to add.
Question, though. Okay, we have 4 members that their term has expired.
I'll speak to the mayor.
Oh,
So
I was
the
gonna say-
bylaws provide, and law provides that they continue until their replacement is appointed. And so they're
Okay.
continue, the fact that their term expired doesn't mean that they're not a functional member of the planning commission. But the mayor will have to take up nominations.
So we couldn't take any action now to extend those?
It's not up, no, it's up to council. Mayor appoints and council
Just asking for
confirms.
the record here.
The attendance is optional moving forward, right?
I'll have that taken care of on the council meeting on the 16th.
Thank you.
We have a meeting coming up, I think you're all aware of the joint meeting on the
24th.
24th of January with the council, zoning board of appeals, and I think the DDA is invited to that too, I believe.
Yes, all of the council, planning commission, CBA, and DDA have all been invited to attend that meeting.
7 o'clock here, okay. That's all I have.
I have 7:30 just want to make sure that we're on the same page. Is it 7 or 7:30?
I'll confirm with the clerk
Okay.
when
Thank you.
he's out sick, so I'll confirm with
thank you.
him.
In
but-
location, there seemed to be some confusion.
I've got Hunter Communities.
Yeah, I know. I think
Conference room.
Joan had
Accidentally
inadvertently
made a
sent out a
mistake.
message. I will also confirm that with them. That was part of mine.
Looky,
Oh,
looky.
maybe I won't confirm
Hot
because
off the
Dave is
press, yeah.
on it. It is at 7 p.m.
Yep.
in the community center.
Zero.
Community.
That's here.
Yes.
Right there.
Right over
Over
there.
there.
Okay,
So.
I've got just one item, if we're all set. Yes, I'd like to thank the television audience at home and wish them a happy new year for joining us this first meeting of 2018.
Still awake. If they're still awake.
Motion to get out of here.
Adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
And I support.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
So did you say we are?